because it's our Ohio Supreme Court that ultimately will make that decision. And quite recently, there were a couple items that communities thought that should be a matter of local concern. Remember, the city of Cleveland believed it should be able to make a determination of whether or not concealed carry guns were permitted in their parks. But the Supreme Court had decided that that was a matter of general concern. It was a general law, and the Supreme Court did not want to see a patchwork of laws throughout the state involving carrying in guns in parks. So they decided that was a matter that would not be permitted to be in a charter of local concern. Most recently, you might have seen a case involving a municipality that wished to limit fracking and oil and gas drilling in their community, and they wanted to have their own rules for that. It was a matter of local concern. However, our General Assembly enacted general statewide regulation, and I imagine that there was quite a bit of lobbying going on for that type of legislation. But indeed, the Supreme Court made the determination that that type of regulation, and again, they didn't want to see a patchwork of those types of things, and perhaps the amount of money that was involved in local leases for gas and so forth. So they decided that that was a matter that was not of local concern, that it was a general law. But outside of those, as you can see from our charter, it does provide how the city essentially is run, and it provides some elements in there that perhaps when you first look at those, and maybe sometimes for me it's the first 5 times I look at it before I fully understand what that means. And some of those I didn't understand until I was actually working with them and see how those either limit or aid some of our departments, whether they restrict or enhance what we can do versus things that are spelled out in the Ohio Revised Code. So we want to offer to you that although the charter may appear confusing, and I would imagine that you should find it that way because it's law, and although those that draft law attempt to do it in a way that is clear so you can understand its intent, sometimes in wrangling the words around in there, it can make it somewhat difficult. So we absolutely want to offer up that all of our city employees, all of our city officials are available to answer your questions. So if the commission wants to speak with someone involving with purchasing or with the street department or with council or the administration, any one of those will absolutely make them available so you can ask them questions, get their feedback, so you can understand perhaps what a recommendation may help, or perhaps in their belief hinder their operation. And the clerk and myself are here certainly not to influence anything that you wish to discuss or debate, but to offer our services, as the clerk is responsible ultimately for minutes of the meeting, and I'm responsible for when you get to a point where your recommendations, put pen to paper to actually put these into effect. I'll draft those for council review, and if they're approved by council, my responsibility is to draft those for the Board of Elections and for the Secretary of State. So again, thank you all for coming out on a Thursday evening and at night that you could certainly be doing something else, and for your desire to aid the city in how its government works.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. And to this point, council is very accessible. Make sure you guys all have our cell numbers. If you have any questions, as a group or individually, feel free to reach out and call anytime. Especially my phone. I have my phone with me at all times. So at this time, what I'll do is I'll open up nominations for the chair. Once we have, you can nominate yourself, or you can nominate someone else on the committee. We'll do a roll call vote for each one. That is probably the best way to do it.
Sure.
Show of hands, whatever.
Before you do that, you kind of, I don't know everybody here.
Yeah.
Kind of just introduce yourself and give a little brief bio.
That's a great idea. We did, everyone stood up and gave their name last time. Oh, that's a great idea. Why don't we do that? We'll start here from that. Stand up, kind of give a background, how long you've been here. That's everything.
Yeah, my name is Matt Gregory. I've lived in the city, I think, for about 8 years now. Born and raised in North Canton, but in the bottom side of town. Graduated from Hoover. My kids are in the school district. I've been a school employee. I coached at the high school. I've been coaching at the high school for 15 years, my 15th season at Hoover, which is the varsity head coach. And I was coaching football as well. And then my other life, I worked for a company called Gregory Industries, where I'm executive vice president in charge of strategic planning and operations.
I'm Larry Tripp, live in East Maple and Eastbury. I'm a native of South Dakota. I've lived here about 30 years now. Retired 20 plus years from BF Goodrich as an accounting manager. Married, a couple children, both grown. One daughter graduated from Hoover.
My name's Gary Barker. I've been resident of North Canton since 1968, teacher at Hoover, and fortunate enough to spend 15 years on the council.
My name is Mary Zarko, and I also have been pretty much a lifelong resident of North Canton, give or take a couple of years here and there. My husband as well. And we have 3 boys who attend North Canton City Schools. We both graduated from there. I'm an attorney, and I work at Baker Digital Park, which is, as you all know, right in North Canton, outside of the YMCA.
Hi, I'm Emily Euro, graduated from Hoover 91, lived here whole life in the city as an adult, my entire adult life in the city. I have 2 boys that have graduated from Hoover, and then I have a daughter that's in 3rd grade. We work at Cutler Real Estate in North Canton.
Hi, I'm Jessica Stroil, almost 27 years in North Canton, so is my husband. I manage a startup, so if you want to give me your orders, I can help us out there. I use housekeeping and weddings. My name is Jen Harrington. I've lived here in North Canton for about 20 years, moved from West Virginia. Worked in the city, I have my own business as a graphic designer, and I've been in the city for about 10 years doing that. And I also, 2014, founded an organization, a nonprofit organization called Positive Ohio, which is, in short, about helping dogs find homes.
My name is John Zepp. I'm from Zepp Street, lived on Main Street, lived in North Canton my whole life. I was actually a student of Gary's in high school. My dad retired from Hoover Company. He worked there 43 years, so all of my brothers and sisters and I attended Hoover. I've never lived outside of like a 10-block radius from where I was born, so life started in North Canton.
Hi, I'm Ken Swickert. I moved here when I was 5 years old in 1959. Graduated from Hoover in 71. I remember you. I'm not sure if I had you when you teach.
American Government Sarbaugh, I moved to North Canton in '69. Got 2 kids, they graduated from Hoover, 7 grandkids, served very director on council about 10 years, involved in the North Canton Lions Club for 35 years, and member of the Air Force Auxiliary, who's president, Homeland Security Officer, I've been there for about 18 years. Just trying to stay involved.
I'm Mary Bachman. I've lived in River Avenue for 40 years. I moved up the road from Louisville, and I've been converted from a leopard to a lighting. I had 4 children graduated from Hoover, 3 grandchildren graduated, one's a senior. I retired. I worked for the Ohio Department of Health, and I was a nursing home surveyor.
I tell you, a lot of history in this room, a lot of familiar faces. It's interesting. The reason that I'm on council, that I even ran for office with Gary Wagner, it's at all. Both gave me my love for public service and politics, and I spent my formative years as a kid. When I wasn't at home, I was in her house. So, interesting. Greg was a mentor to me when I first came on council. So, a lot of history. I'm glad we're together. So, it's a little bit about everyone. What I'll do is I'll open up nominations for a chair. Once we vote on the chair, I'll allow the chairman, and then we'll take the meeting over, and we'll open up nominations for vice chair, secretary, and at that point, the chair will adjourn the meeting. If you guys want, can they set the next meeting?
Yes, sir. That'd be a good idea while they're all here to schedule their next meeting.
So if you guys can come up with that, we're missing 3, but I think if you guys come up with a pretty nice, or good date, you can communicate that to the other 3. So,
What are the general, what are the tasks? What are the tasks of the general?
Okay, every decision is made by the board. The group drives everything. The chair is like a mother, keeps things going, makes the agenda, just keeps things flowing. But the chair has no power. Okay? It's the whole group. Nothing is done unless the group decides. And then, of course, the vice chair takes over from the chair. It's gone. And the secretary this year will be easy because we have somebody that will be taking the minutes. So the secretary job will be very minimal this time.
Are there any other questions before we start?
If I may make a recommendation for, as Ms. Bachman had mentioned, that there are minutes, they're not verbatim minutes or summary minutes, but although the clerk is here, your voices are being recorded, but it may be difficult in perhaps the first couple meetings for her to pick up later. So perhaps if you speak, if you just say your name, maybe your first name or your last name, it could aid her in putting together those minutes, and for your secretary.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea, because there will be times when you can't make a meeting, and she will have minutes very good at it too. If you could maybe mention your name before you make a comment, until she'll pick up right. Yes, sir.
I'm Greg Sarbaugh. I'd like to nominate Mother Mary Bachman to be the chairman.
And for our first nomination,
I'm Gary Director. I'd like to second that nomination.
all right, there we go. We have our first nomination. Before I close nominations,
If I may, the notes, we actually save notes in the minutes and all of those things from all the commissions. And in the previous one, they made some, like a list of recommendations, and they had thrown out that Thursdays, because no other boards seem to meet on Thursdays, so long as the group doesn't have any other conflicts, because council meets on Mondays, and then Mayor's Court, Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Commission, they often meet on Wednesdays, so perhaps Tuesdays or Thursdays, you wouldn't bump in with another group that might need the chambers.
Thursdays are better.
Did Jennifer say much?
I think she missed this night for a specific reason. I think we're almost the same issue. I'm not sure how Terry is.
He's out of town.
He's out there.
She found it, and now it's not going on. There are people that do come and want to speak. So what we did last time was set aside the end of the meeting to have people, give their wishes for the charter. So I was thinking, and of course, the group decides maybe an hour and 45 minutes for our meeting, and then the last 15 for public speaks. And then if nobody comes, then our meeting will be an hour and 45 minutes. Is that too long, do you think? You gonna try an hour and a half? What we did last time.
Maybe, I think it would probably be easier to start big and prepare that.
Yeah. What we did last time is we went through every page. Now, this charter, 1969, that's back when Canton was small and fundamentally money for we were coming. And in the past 10 years, things have really, really changed. So we'll go through every page. And then there's a lot of housekeeping things.
Do we have the changes from 2007?
Get those for you.
I'd like to see those. I mean, that would, I think, assist us a lot as far as, getting us in the right direction. I guess we wouldn't need them, but 97 was the previous time we had a charter review.
Well, interesting enough, the last charter commission, Mary and I were talking about this earlier, one of the items that actually went to the ballot and passed the ballot was the fact that the director of administration has to live within the city limits. We get why people wanted that, but it was contrary to state law. If it was ever challenged, we shut down. So here it sits in our charter, and it's basically constitutional. That might be one of the things we first.
Just for example, something that should be changed is, it says in the charter that every time there's a special council meeting, that the clerk will deliver to the home of each council person the agenda. Well, see now, after 10 years, we have electronics, so that's silly.
That was looked at, we should just not take the
So that's some of the,
it says written, and that doesn't define what written is, but I was thinking about the emails or included.
there's a lot of housekeeping things that need to be bring us up to 2017.
I'm just gonna, should we talk through the idea of maybe having the public speak first, so we can discuss it, instead of at the end, and then we leave on that? I don't know if that makes sense. I'm just talking out loud.
I think one of the reasons that they may have had it at the end was so that those that were there to see what was occurring, not really knowing exactly what was going to be before them, at the end of it, they gave their opinion on what they saw, and I believe it was more related to, say, when you meet the next time. But again, council does it the opposite way. It starts with those, and people look at the agenda and the legislation, so.
There's nothing to say that we can't change it. We start out the first meeting with the end, and maybe the next meeting we decide we're going to, by the group. Whatever the group wants to do.
Have you determined Thursday night, what we're going
Yeah, that seems to be a good one.
to 6 o'clock?
Is 6 good for everybody?
Try my best for this, right?
Or,
if I may, just one last thing. We mentioned it at the council meeting, but some of you weren't available, of course. But if you receive recommendations from, you may have someone call you, email you, see you on the street and have a recommendation for you, it's important that you reduce that to writing if it's not already in writing, because as the chair had stated, it's between all of you, so you all should see those. And the clerk is here. If you have it simply written down, she'll make copies so that everyone has a copy of that. And the clerk will maintain those as well, a copy of those, because they will be a public record. And sometimes folks will ask to see, hey, what are the things that have been presented to the commission thus far?
If I could say one thing, Chair. In the interest of recording properly the verbatim minutes, maybe you could touch on how you guys were set up last time, as far as seating and whatnot. Our speakers are here.
Last time we had 12 members that sat on the dais. The officers sat here, and then everybody else sat in the audience. And we did have council people attend. The law director came to not every meeting, but quite a few. And then we had cardboard name tags, nothing fancy, just cardboard that was folded like a tent.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
And I can make those if you're. Okay.
Hi, my address is wrong on the roster, so everybody's aware that I'm going to
Yeah, make sure that you get it to me.
Okay.
You said the address is in
Yeah.
your,
Yeah.
I was
I'll
gonna-
get that to you.
I was gonna say, who?
Yeah, I have it. Okay, motion to adjourn. Sorry. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Good job.